So the Lenten journey is where we are beginning because that's the journey where we have been on for the past several weeks. Now I'm going to do a quick review of what we did last week or last session. What are the various important days of the Lenten journey? Remember, not just Holy Week, but the whole Lenten journey. What are the important days? Take 1 minute with your partners. Go. The different Sundays. 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds. 10 more seconds. 10 more seconds. Alrighty, guys, come back in 3, in 2, and 1. Need everyone's attention up here, back up here. Okay. Alright, so let's begin. We're not gonna go through each single one. Just call it out. So just for the sake of time, what's the first Sunday of Lent? Wedding of. Yeah, wedding of Kennedy, right? Also go Kotane Sunday. Alright, next one is.
Healing of the leper.
Oh, all right, we got some sibling rivalry here. Shukona Monday. What comes after Shukona Monday? The next Sunday, Sunday of the leper. I think we'll just quickly go through this just for the sake of having it filled out. Then we go on to the paralytic man who was healed. Then the Canaanite woman. Then Midlent, right? Midlent, which we celebrated on March 6th. And then today we're here, 5th Sunday. There's still another half. There's 6th Sunday, healing of the blind man, next Sunday. Then there's 40th Friday, the 40th day of Lent, almost there. Then there's Lazarus Saturday. Then there's Palm Sunday, called Ushana. And then there's Pesach, which is Passover. We have Good Friday. Then we have Saturday of Good Tidings, also called Gospel Saturday, because Christ descends to Sheol and preaches the gospel. And then there is Resurrection Sunday, which is Kemta, which is Uyapa, as we call it, right? This is the Lenten journey. We have come to the point where we are kind of at the midpoint. The reason why we have mid-Lent is because it's in the middle of Lent. I know when we see it in terms of this image, mid-Lent is not right in the middle. That's just because we have a lot to fit here, that's all. But we are at the point of mid-Lent, right? That is the midpoint. We celebrated it on March the 6th, which is the 25th day of Lent. That marks the midpoint of our Lenten journey. Now, question for you. What do you already know about Mid-Lent? That can be the origins, the service, why we do it, where it comes from. Take 30 seconds and know yourselves. Go. Ten more seconds. 10 more seconds. Come back in 3, in 2, and 1. Need everyone's attention, please. All right, what do we already know about Midlent? Just need 2 people to share up. Raise your hand, please. Basil, go ahead.
We use the Golgotha during this service.
Okay, you have the Golgotha, right? The big red cloth cross at the center of the church. That's there. What else? Anyone else? What else? Nothing else? Okay, that's fine. That's where we're having the session, right? Alrighty, let me take you back in time to the Old Testament, the book of Numbers, chapter 21, verses 4 through 9. I need 2 readers, please, 2 volunteers with loud, strong voices. Okay, we'll go with the younger one here. Ava got her hand up. And Eldo. Can you project for me from the back? No? Can't project your voice? Okay, it's fine. Okay, Ava and Eldo. Ava, can you read 4 through 6? And then Eldo from 7 onwards.
From Mount Hor they set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of
Edom.
And so
Edom.
and Edom, and the people became impatient on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people so that many people of Israel died.
Thank you, Ava. Go ahead. Hello.
And the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, Make a fiery serpent and set it on the pole. And everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole. And if a serpent bit any man, he would look at the bronze serpent and live.
Thank you, both Ava and Eldo, for reading. So this is, the background of this is the Israelites have left the land of Egypt. They're no longer slaves. Moses has delivered them out of Egypt. They're on this long 40-year journey to the land of Canaan, the land of milk and honey, the place where God has promised to have them live and prosper. But it's 40 years. That journey is very long. They grow impatient and they start to blame God and also blame Moses. And they start to question, why did God bring us out? Why did you bring us out, Moses? At least in Egypt, we had some kind of sustenance. At least we could be there. And that is when they are punished by being bit by these serpents. They pray, they ask Moses. Moses prays for the people, and then God tells him to make a fiery serpent, set it on a pole, as we see here on this image. And Moses creates a bronze serpent, sets it on a pole, and if a serpent bit a man, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. So this is the means, the way through which God assigned Moses this specific task in order to save the people of Israel, because they were being attacked by these fiery serpents. And in order to save them, he had Moses do this. Now, in our Midlent service, we repeatedly hear the same theme of what Moses did, because it is parallel to what happens in, and it foreshadowed what we see in the New Testament, which is none other than Jesus Christ and his crucifixion. I need a volunteer to please read from the Gospel of John. Never go.
As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him may have eternal life.
Who said this?
John.
It's in the Gospel of John. That is using a context clues. It was Jesus. Jesus says this. Jesus says, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man. Me, not me. Jesus, right? Jesus must be lifted up, and whoever believes in him may have eternal life. So, in that way, Jesus says, as Moses lifted up the serpent, the Son of Man must be lifted up. So that's the parallel. As Moses lifted up the bronze serpent, and the Israelites looked at that bronze serpent and were saved, we look to Jesus Christ, who hung on the cross for us, for our salvation. In the same way, we know that the Old Testament is constantly a constant foreshadow of what's to come in the New Testament with Christ. Because Christ says, I have come to fulfill, not to destroy, to fulfill what the Old Testament said. And so that is why we see that this is a fulfillment. Now I'm going to add a third piece to this. First, we see that Moses and the bronze serpent are in the Old Testament, right? Then we just read from the Gospel of John, said by who? Jesus, that the Son of Man will be lifted up as Moses lifted up the bronze serpent. This is the parallel. Now we take that into our time and what we do, and we have the Golgotha in the center of the church, right? What we see in the Old Testament, what Christ actually performed in his salvation ministry, what he did to save the world, we see the same thing. That is why when we walk into the church after Midlent, what do we do? Or what are we supposed to do? We go and kiss the, well, there's nothing hanging down in this picture, but you go and kiss the side of it, right? As you venerate the cross, as the Israelites look to the bronze serpent, we look to this cross as the symbol of our salvation, right? The symbol of how we were saved. And this is why the Golgotha, it's not in our chapel, but it is downstairs at the center. And we kiss it when we enter church, and we kiss it when we leave church, because it is centered on Christ, who is the one who is present there, and that signifies that. That same cross as the Lenten journey continues, will be taken down. We'll bring it closer to the altar. Through that Lenten journey, you'll get closer and closer to the altar. It'll be on the front, dressed in black, when Good Friday comes or when Holy Week comes. Then that same cross we'll venerate the cross on Good Friday. We'll take that cross and it'll be buried in the altar, the tomb of Christ. And then after resurrection, it'll stand again in the red sheet, the red cloth to symbolize the resurrection and Christ's glory. This is all symbolic of what we see in the Old Testament and what's fulfilled in the life of Christ. Is that clear? Many of us know this already. It's just reminding ourselves during this Lenten period. I'm going to move quickly so that we can get to the later parts. Now, the actual Midlent service, raise your hand if you were able to attend Midlent this year. Okay, some of us were able to. Many churches do it on Sunday like today. In the cathedral, it was done on Tuesday night, going into Wednesday, earlier in the week. So if you were here today, unfortunately, you were not able to participate in Midlent if you were not downstairs earlier in the week. The Midlent service has three parts. There's a procession where they hold the cross, Achin holds the cross and goes around the church. There's an exaltation of the cross. You know, Achin does the four corners, raises the cross in the four sides of the altar, which is, of course, east, west, north, south. And then they go to the Golgotha. The Golgotha meaning Golgotha, the place where Christ was crucified. And then they place the cross on there. And then there's a specific kuklion, like we just sang, "See the royal daughter stand," addressing Saint Mary, and the different kuklions for the saints. This one, there's a specific one for just the cross. And that's how the service goes. And all these things that we just talked about right now, with Old Testament, New Testament, is present in our prayers. Remember I said when we hold the cross up, Achin holds like this, and a prayer is said in each direction? Each of these prayers have all this symbolism that we just talked about. Here is the prayer that is said facing east. For the sake of time, I'm just going to quickly read through it. Here we read, the priest says, "O Christ our God, the mystery of the staff of Moses, the head of the prophets, prefigured you. It foretold about you. When it was lifted up in the midst of the Israelites' camp, it foreshadowed the sign of your redemptive cross." Exactly what we just saw in those two images, right? And now in the middle of the Holy Lent, your holy church adores your life-giving cross. At mid-Lent, as the bronze serpent was in the midst of the Israelite camp, as the holy cross stands in the middle of the world as the sign of our salvation, that cross we put in our church at the center of the church for everyone to venerate. And that's what we see for the protection of children, for the blessing of the year, for preservation from all kinds of harm and damage. That's the prayer that's facing east. Now, when we face north, we see something similar. "O God, you were prefigured by the prophets of ancient times. Moses typified or foretold your cross by the brass or bronze serpent, which was lifted up in the midst of the camp." Now, when you look at this prayer, I want you to take 30 seconds with your partners who you were working with this whole time and identify for me, there's something here that doesn't belong because it's not from the Bible, it's not from the life of Christ. Take 30 seconds to find out with your partners. Go.
Yeah.
So we're hearing it from everyone. Isaiah, what did you just mention?
Abgar.
Abgar. "As you granted the request of Abgar the Black and gave him solace and relief from his illness." That's not found in the Bible. That's not from anything that we just talked about. But the question is, why does this appear in our prayer? Why is it present? What's the relevance of Abgar the Black? We'll talk more about that. Well, it's because the Feast of Midlent also coincides with the Feast of King Abgar in our Syriac tradition. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get chirps here, but take 30 seconds, try and... Has anyone heard of King Abgar? A couple of us have. Anyone in the back? Well, welcome, because we're going to talk about King Abgar real quick. Because there's a reason here, right? Let's just come back real quickly. If we see here that the service itself has Moses, has Pharaoh, and all these things about him being, the people of Israel being saved and all of that, then if it's being mentioned that King Abgar is present here, it has something important that the church is trying to say, which is the reality of King Abgar of Edessa. Now, I'm going to say a few things real quickly. You want to move quickly through this. King Abgar of Edessa, real quick, a couple of points about him. He was the king of Edessa. Edessa is in modern-day southeast Turkey. There are many church fathers from the Syriac church who are from Edessa. Saint Ephraim, this chapel and our cathedral, is named after, Saint Ephrem the Syrian. He came from Edessa, that was his city. And this king, Abgar, lived during the time of Jesus, and he became ill due to a sickness. Historians say it might have been leprosy, most likely. And leprosy is a disease, you know, once you have it, downhill from there. You're basically, there's no coming out of it, right? So legend says that he wrote a letter to Jesus asking for Jesus to come to Edessa and visit him. He's a king. And he hears about this healer from Nazareth, and he wants Jesus to visit him in Edessa and basically heal him because he's been hearing stories about this carpenter from Nazareth who is doing great wonders. So we actually have this text present of what his letter was to Christ. If I can have someone read this real quickly. Nice and loud, Joshua.
Abgar Ukomo,
Ukomo is like his family name.
the Toparch, to Jesus the good Savior, who has appeared in the district of Jerusalem, greetings. I have heard concerning you and your cures, how they are accomplished by you without drugs and herbs. And when I heard of all these things concerning you, I decided that it is one of two things, either that you are God and came down from heaven to do these things, or are the Son of God for doing these things. For this reason I write to beg you to hasten to me and to heal the suffering which I have.
Thank you, Josh, for reading that. So this is the text of his letter. This text was found in Edessa in early church history. They actually found his letter, a copy of it, in the place in Edessa where these things were kept. Now, the crazy thing about this, according to the Syriac tradition, and which is why King Abgar's story is present in our Midlent service, is that the church teaches us that Christ actually gave a reply. Christ gave a reply to King Abgar, and it was delivered by someone named Ananias, one of the followers. You know how we say about Jesus Christ, especially in the Bible, we know he didn't just have 12 disciples, right? He had 70 or more. They say 72 in the Malayalam, the ones who would go and preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to other people. So Ananias fell in that group. Not his 12 like close disciples, but still within his circle of followers. And this is his reply that he gave to Ananias to go and give to King Abgar. Who can do that for me? No.
Blessed are you who believed in me, not having seen me. Now, concerning what you wrote to me, to come to you, I must first complete here all for which I was sent, and after thus completing it, be taken up to him who sent me. And when I have been taken up, I will send to you one of my disciples to heal your suffering, and give life to you and those with you.
So this is the response that Christ gave, and this account, this text, is from the ecclesiastical history written by Eusebius of Caesarea, and he visited Edessa, and he writes that he saw this letter for himself. He read this letter for himself, this reply. This letter was kept in a sacred place as a relic, being that it was a letter given by Christ in the early church. Unfortunately, after many wars, it was destroyed and lost closer to the 7th or 8th century, and it is no longer in possession, but this church father, Eusebius, has written in his history of the church that he's seen it with his own eyes. And that's why he wrote the recording, he recorded that this happened. Going back to King Abgar of Edessa, it is believed that one of the 70 went to Abgar after Christ's death and his resurrection and delivered this letter to him. And because Abgar wished so much to see Jesus Christ, the understanding is that there was a painting of Jesus Christ, a drawing that was given to Abgar so he can at least see what Jesus Christ looked like. And this was preserved in Edessa. And in Greek it's called a mandilon, which is a cloth or towel that contains an image. And that's why whenever King Abgar is seen in an icon, he's holding this, because it's symbolic of the fact that he received an image from a disciple of Christ to let him know what this Jesus of Nazareth looks like. It is believed also that he converted to Christianity, and in that way Edessa became the first Christian kingdom shortly after Jesus Christ died and resurrected. So that is why his feast day is the day right after Midlent. It's the Thursday right after Midlent. And that is why I bring you back to this. That is why we bring up his thought or his story. It's called King Abgar the Black in the sense that a lot of times in the western parts of Syria, there was an idea that they are of a certain skin complexion. Obviously, we have to think from that time period. That's why that term is used. Of course, we wouldn't speak like that now. But the idea here is that Abgar, the important thing to highlight here is that as he gained solace and relief from his illness, O Lord, please accept our fasts and our prayers during this period of Great Lent. Now, I'm going to quickly skip through what we're going to do. If I can just